Have you ever wanted to be outdoors and wondered why you're not spending enough time? Hi, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm going to be your host today on Archer Talk 101. And we have a special guest with us that's outdoor enthusiast and archer. His name is Jon Roberts, and he's going to be joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about archery and spending time outdoors and what it can do for us. Hi, Jon. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Roy. Good morning, and thanks for having me. That's first and foremost. I really appreciate the time to spend with you. So I, I'm looking forward to a great discussion with you today.
Yeah, so let's start this off. Like, why and how did you get started in archery?
I started when I was just a young lad. I got really interested into it. I had a friend of mine that lived across the street from me. His dad was really an avid bow hunter. He used to shoot the old recurve style bows, and he'd take us out in the backyard and we'd fling arrows across the yard. Little kids, bouncing things around. And I learned how to create a bow with just a piece of stick and some rope. And I was trying to emulate my neighbor's dad, and we were just having a blast and what have you. So that really that was the first part of how I got interested in the sport. And as I started getting older, I as a young boy does, I got interested in various other things and motocrossing and all kinds of stuff and what have you, and kind of got distracted from it. But my brother really took off with it a lot more than I did. He spent a very large amount of his youth learning how to shoot a bow and got really, really dialed into it. And as I started getting older, he really was the one that got me back into it. He got me reinterested in picking up the bow again and really diving in and getting enthusiastic about it, and remembering what it was like when we were sitting across the street with our dad or our buddy's dad and our buddy and just having fun, and just that stirred that inspiration of being a youth and getting out there and having fun with that. So that's really how I got into it. And then when I got revisited into it, it was all about my brother getting me into it, get me back into it.
Yeah, that's always nice when you can do it with your family members and just keep busy, enjoying doing something like that. I know my one brother, he actually had the first compound and I shot his. It was a bear whitetail 2. And if you remember those were
I
back in the
do.
70s.
I do.
And yeah, they're okay, but they pretty nice, for those days. It was quite the newfangled toy.
Yeah. Heavy as a
And
tank, but they were
yeah, they were tough.
absolutely.
They kind of they worked and just kind of go from there. And then I went through clear up into the 90s. I was shooting compound bows pretty much wrong, and then I got some instruction, and that's when I become an archery instructor. Is after that, but I know it's been a whole lot of fun, been a nice journey. And so you say your brother shoots as well, and then you shoot it. You do a lot of competitions together, or
Not so much really the competitions. For me and him, it's more about actually getting out and doing the hunt. He really taught me how to shoot a bow properly. He's more along the lines like you are. He gets not only into the shooting aspect of it, but he also gets into fixing them, tuning them, and doing all of the other aspects of being around archery and what have you, making and fletching his own arrows, et cetera, et cetera. So he really got me into dialing in and learning to get out in and just be in the woods and do the hunt. And when we first started doing it, it was really just about being outside. It was about getting outdoors and just spending time together with my brother. And yeah, the archery part was the bonus for that. But for me, it was about being with my brother and being able to reconnect, kindle our the friendship that we have between each other, and getting out and doing something together as a family. So he really got into teaching me, the aspects of being the correct form and that kind of stuff like that and what have you. I had a blast with that, and I still shoot wrong today. and every time I do, he's always looking at me and just rolling the eyes and saying, "Yeah, okay, buddy," and But it's a blast, you know. And I really do. I try to shoot properly, but I haven't formed enough good habits. So the time that I do spend with him now, it's all about, hey, big brother, or hey, little brother, you know, you want to show me how to do that again? Because you know, I think we're doing something wrong here. But we've not. So the competition for us really is more about just being able to get out there and do it right and proper. So when I'm shooting wrong, he's always correcting me. And so when I start doing it right and I dial it in and I get those every once in a while, you know, the 1 in a million Robin Hood, you know, for me, you know, he's, you know, like we have discussed before, he's the king of Robin Hoods and telling me how expensive it costs, you know, when you start doing that every time you shoot an arrow down range, you know, you single Robin Hood, you know, that's kind of costly. A double Robin Hood, now you're really getting into the expenses and you know, and those kinds of things. But so there's that little kind of a challenge between us once in a while, if you will, where he says, you know, come on, let's do this. We'll get out there and knock some arrows down and start hitting the 0 points and what have you. And then I'm like, all right, let's get after this. You know, and he'd be like, all right, buddy, let me show you how it's done. So yeah, there's a little competition there, you know, the brotherly competition, but
Yeah.
but we don't, I mean, we don't just set a date. We're going to go shoot the targets and see if I can, and you know, if I can really hammer you up. So we don't do that.
Just get out there and just have fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's for me and him. That's what it's about. It's just about having fun and getting out there and just really enjoying being out together and doing things together in the outdoors.
Oh, when the fun goes away, then it becomes a job. And,
Absolutely.
you know, if your job is shooting a bow, then how do you have fun with archery when it's your job?
Yes, exactly.
You know,
Yes, absolutely.
when it becomes not fun, then it's time to switch up, do something different. You know, if you're shooting compounds and all of a sudden it's not fun anymore, well, pick up a recurve. You know, that's a whole new challenge, whole new ball game.
Certainly.
And
Absolutely. And that's what I learned on. I learned on one of the old bear strikes. So yeah, a recurve. And that was very challenging.
yeah,
Haven't touched
my
a recurve in a long time.
my first bow was a 25-pound Ben Pearson fiberglass recurve.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I do remember those.
I still have it.
No kidding. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
still have it. And when I was in scouts, you know, I did the archery merit badge and I made some arrows, and I still got a few of those left.
Oh
I
yeah.
won't
Yeah.
shoot them. I won't shoot the bow anymore because you
Sure.
can see the fiberglass. You can see if you pull it back, it's probably going to start splitting, and it's not worth
Yeah.
it.
Blow up on you. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a little bit bigger. I think it's 40 or 45 pound PSE recurve that I shoot when I do that. I have that set up for bow fishing. That's what I mostly use it for is bow fishing. And I don't know about you, but for me, when I pick up a recurve, I don't shoot it like a compound. I pick up a compound. I can't shoot it instinctively like I do a recurve.
Right. Yes. I'm the same way.
It's my mind is different, you know. That's why I can't use a compound for bow fishing because I don't have time get to my anchor point, everything, you know, go through all the process you go through when you're shooting compound bow, you know, the correct form and all that. You know, you can't do that with deer because you aren't okay, here, gone. You know, you don't have that quick snap shooting. And I can do that with the recurve because I look at the target, I focus on it. I don't use any part of the arrow or the bow as a sight reference. I just look at the target, draw up, and shoot. You know, that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I get a compound in my hand. I just my mind won't change to that, and I don't have a desire to change. It's just like when you pick up a handgun, you pick up a rifle or shotgun. They're all different, all shot differently.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's just a different weapon, and that's you know that's me. Some can do it. I don't because I just that's just me.
Instinctively it becomes a habit, right? Depending on
Right,
the way that you're taught and the way that you learn how to shoot, right? And
right.
I understand exactly, you know, that concept because when I was first starting to shoot, it was all about shooting with a recurve and getting that quick reaction time. Because when I first started doing the actual going out and sitting, or hunting. When my brother and I were young and shooting, it was about us, getting out there and running the stock, not just sitting in the seat. We were out there, and when you're stalking predators or deer or whatever the target happens to be, and that for us it was kind of a different perspective as well. Just beyond the hunt, it was more than just being on the hunt. It was because we eat what we kill. So if I'm going to kill something, I'm going to eat it. Then when you're on a stock, it's a lot different kind of a mindset than when you're sitting in the seat and just experiencing nature and those kinds of things like that, and kind of waiting on the deer. When you're out there actually stalking it, you've got to be reactive. You've got to have that quick alert. And like you say, when you're drawn back on the compound, if you learn that instinctively you got to cock and lock and get that point and hit your focus, your deer's already gone. If you're on a stalk, there ain't no way, right? So it's pull, drop, wham, and away you go, right? And so you learn that. So I can definitely empathize with that, because and I've hunted, or I've used my bow to fish with as well. When I was in the military, we used to go down to the border of Texas and Louisiana, and there's a huge reservoir down there called Toledo Bend, and it's like 60 some miles long and 2 or 3 miles wide. And right at the border of Texas, on the southern border of it, there's a huge dam down there. And coming off the spillway, they have these huge, just monster fish down there. And we had a blast just nailing them with bow and arrow. And I had to use a recurve while I was doing that, because I couldn't shoot with compound. There was no way. I mean, these guys are striper bass, by the way, was the fish that we were shooting after. And I tried. First time I went out, I bought and brought a crossbow, and I was trying to fish with the crossbow. I was like, oh my God, you're a knucklehead. I was flinging arrows. I lost more arrows throwing them into the water coming off of that compound so hard. Right. I was like, all right, yeah, we got to try a different aspect of this. Well, then of course I went out with the recurve, and I got some success. But again, it was all about the reaction and learning where, how I've got to drop the arrow down below the fish, because the way that when you're looking at the water, how the fish actually sits in the water, and the way that the angle of that you're looking at the fish is actually the fish is sitting higher than what you're actually looking at, right? So you got to aim below, et cetera, right? But it was all about popping it with a recurve, because that was the only way I could get the motion, because as they jump, and I got one, brings us back to the competition. I hit one time. Well, the buddy that I was fishing with, I stroke lock, wham, and I hit him right in the air, right as he was coming out of the water, and I blasted him. And it was like, oh yes, whoa, what do you got for me, pal? So, but yeah, and so yes, I definitely agree. I'm digressing. We're getting off topic here, but yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know. One time I was out bow fishing, I'm shooting at the carp, and it's like, keep missing them. Well, this gar come by, about inch diameter. I hit it. I'm missing the big fish and hit the little one.
Right.
And like, oh man, I couldn't believe I kept missing them. It's like, what's going on? And then the little one come by, and I must have been my focus. I was focusing on the little target, and
right.
I wasn't picking a spot on the big fish. I just picked in the whole big fish, and
instead of setting a focal point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, absolutely.
So I know you've been on several hunts. What is your most memorable hunt that you went on?
I've had a couple of very phenomenal hunts. I think probably the one that I remember and that I had the most fun on was a trip that my brother and I went out to Colorado on, and we were doing an elk hunt out in the Rockies, out in Colorado, up and around Hans Peak. And for me, it was probably the best experienced hunt that I didn't kill anything, but just being there and being out there and enjoying that atmosphere. and being able to get out in the wild with my brother and hunt those mountains out there. It was by far the best experience in hunting that I think I've ever had in my lifetime. Um, it took a lot of energy and a lot of training to get to the point, because living up here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, I'm down at sea level. So when you hit those Rocky Mountains and you're at an elevation of 10,000 plus feet, you realize real quick how out of shape you really are. If you're, and my brother and I were both training, we both walking on the treadmill and walking outside and running and doing all kinds of things to stay fit. But humping a 10,000 foot cliff at a 80, 85, degree incline for 2 or 3 days straight is an extreme challenge. But it's also very rewarding. We got to be out and see some very spectacular things, elk included. We didn't get to kill anything, but we got to see some really awesome elk, and we got to see some of the other wildlife and experience some of the things that we were doing out there and what have you. And that was what it was all about for me, because I just wanted, again, it was about spending time with my brother and getting to do things as a family and being outdoors doing that, because that's what I love. I mean, whether I get to actually kill something or not on a hunt, for me, is okay or not okay, depending upon how you look at it, right? I can go out and stalk animals and walk right up on them and really get down and have that arrow pointed at them and looking them dead in the eye and saying, "You're going in my grocery gator tonight," or, "You know what, buddy, you deserve to walk another day," and let it go and be just content with that. I can do that in either aspect, and we got into that in that arena out there in the Colorado hunt. Right? We both had several opportunities to whack elk and whack deer and muleys and all that kind of stuff like that, and I didn't. And and I still had just as much fun just being out there. And we played around. We shot arrows down range and we farted around with that. We kept the aspiration of making sure that our stuff is dialed in. That we're making sure that we're competent with what we're doing and how we're doing it and what have you. And we did that every day. We practiced that every day, right? But the actual hunt, stalking and humping the mountain and what have you, that was my best hunt.
Yeah, that's always when you get a chance to be out in nature. I know I remember one morning I was sitting in a tree stand, and of course here in Nebraska we have some cold winters like you guys do up there in Michigan, but so it's before the sun comes up. I got my bow hanging on a peg, and the sun's starting to come up, and I'm watching the frost form on my bow and the branches, and I just look up and it's just like, oh, this was amazing sight. And then on the way home that morning, there used to be a lot of evergreen trees along the one roads coming in, and every one of them had frost on it. So now I got frosted trees on the way home. That was kind of one of the most memorable mornings that I've seen and that was just the frost forming.
Absolutely. And those are spectacular mornings. When you see the sun coming up and you're watching that and everything is quiet and the break of the new day is just setting in, and you start looking at, how that frost is glistening, the sun is just peeking its nose over the top of the horizon, that glare coming off all of those branches with that frost and that icicles and what. Oh my God, that's beautiful. That's that's a spectacular sight. There's something to give into that.
Yeah, I remember it's coming up, and I forgot I was out there looking for deer because I just started amazed looking at this. Deer could have walked right up. I'd have never known it because I was just kind of looking at all this stuff in here, and it was amazing, what you get to see. And I know I've had birds come land on a branch right in front of me where I could have almost reached out and touched them, and if you're not a hunter in camo, you're not going to have those kind of things happen because very often if you're out, you're not going to be where the birds are going to just come land next to you or on you.
Absolutely, yeah. I've had one. I had a chickadee. I was on a hunt, and it was right. We just got out. It was a 4 o'clock early morning, as it usually is. My brother roused my butt out of bed. Instead of me roasting him out, I've I spent 20 years in the military, up at 4:30 every morning. So when I was on vacation, it was like, no, I am not getting up at 4:30 just so I can, right? But in hindsight, I was very happy to it was the struggle of getting out of out of the rack and the first thing that early in the morning. But when you get sat down and you start watching that sunrise, and for me, I was on a hunt like that with my brother in the west end of the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, and I just gotten sat down and we were just kind of watching things get going and what have you. And as the sun was coming up, I had this chickadee was bouncing around on the limbs up above me, and I start poking around. And usually when I go out, I keep a pocket full of like peanuts or something like that or whatever, because I feed the squirrels and the chipmunks and that kind of stuff like that, whatever. And so I threw out some, in this particular morning, I had some sunflower seed, and I'd set it out on a little plate that I have hanging on one of my racks. I'd pull out there with a little tray and keep my water usually in my tray. But that morning, for whatever reason, I didn't put the cup or the bottle of water in there. I just put some sunflower seeds in there. Next thing you know, the little chickadees all bouncing around on this thing, and I'm watching him and whatever. And boom, he comes over on my shoulder, and I'm like, oh, hey, hi, good morning. How are you doing this morning? He sat there for a minute. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. I wish I had a camera to see this, right? And he sat there for a minute or two and done his little thing, and off he went. And I would have never experienced that if I hadn't just got my butt out of the rack at 4:00 in the morning and got out there and been able to do that. Right. So sometimes that's what it takes, but it's that experience. So yeah, it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it's those things that we get to see and do. And I remember one time I was out in my tree stand, and you can hear the birds are chirping, and the squirrels and rabbits are running around the ground, and then all of a sudden it got dead quiet. The birds went in their little holes in the trees, and the rabbits and squirrels, they went to their little nest, and the forest is just completely quiet. I was like, you can hear the blood rush around in your ears. It gets so quiet.
Absolutely. You can start feeling your heart palpitations. You can hear your breath. It gets that quiet. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is just phenomenal. There's no other feeling like it. It's words escape the amount of pleasure that can be had just by doing those kinds of activities. And for me, that's it's one of my outs. I have several. I love, just being outdoors in general. I like, photography and other things and what have you, and traveling and just being outdoors, but when you get, if you have that passion for archery and you like to get into, being outdoors and hunting and shooting with a bow and what have you, and that's that kind of the thing that you really aspire to want to do, the possibilities are just endless of the things that you're going to experience, right? So yeah, when you sit there and that you hear that turkey gobble for the last call of the day, or that partridge that does that ruffle of the feathers at that last moment right before they get ready to set that roost, and then all of a sudden everything just gets dead silent. It's like that right there, that experience. And you take that, and there's a lot of things in life, there's a lot of times that we want to just have a perfect moment, right? And experience that perfect moment with whatever it happens to be, rather than sometimes we just really need to kind of step back and realize that, there are a lot of perfect moments in life. You just need to stop and realize it and take that moment and make it your perfect one. And those are the times. Me and out the bow, out in the woods with that bow, you get to experience a lot of those.
Yeah, you do, when you go out there and just relax, and there's times when sometimes you're like, okay, I don't want no deer to come by because I'm just enjoying sitting here doing nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's times I'll bring my bow and I'll bring my camera, and I won't do anything but sit and shoot video, right? If like, okay, I need to come out here and I need to sit, and I'm bringing the bow with me in case something miraculous comes by. But and then I get down and I sit down and I'm like, I don't feel like shooting anything today. How about let's break out the camera and let's take some video and just enjoy it and create a memory and something we can share with the kids and the grandkids and, and siblings and parents and others and what have you. So it's sometimes it's more about just being there than it is to be hunting.
Yeah, it's something to say, why do you hunt? You can just go to store and buy it. And it's like, well, this is why. Do you get
Absolutely.
the, have you ever had a bird land on your shoulder or land next to you? Have you ever watched frost form on the tree? Have you ever been sitting out there so quiet you can hear the leaves falling? I'm sure you've heard that before, where I was sitting here and I can hear this sound. It's like, wait, here's this leaf just fluttering down. I can hear it making noises as it's falling. It
Yeah, you
hasn't
can
hit the
hear it
ground,
actually fall off the tree. The wind
right?
will the wind will do that little, and all of a sudden you hear, you're like,
Yeah,
oh, that's a leaf doing that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. When you get tuned in to hearing every little noise, and I remember one time it was like where I was at, there were some reeds up 100 yards away or so, and it was right about prime time. And all of a sudden, I heard this racket, and I was like, "Who is walking around out there? Prime time for?" No, it was a deer, just making that all kinds of racket.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right at the
Just
beginning of the rut, especially, they're just cleaning all the velvet off of the tines. It's just rocket, just banging the hell, right? Banging the heck out of trees. pardon my pardon my French. But yeah, that's or you get a couple of males out there just rattle tagging, and right in the heat of the rut, and just it's it's enough to. And I guess, in a lot of aspects, when I was younger, I really used to take for granted, because of growing up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, being able to be outdoors and hunting and fishing and doing kinds of things that we can do up here. I took it for granted for a lot of years, just the ability to be outside and see wildlife, just to sit in a stand, or to be on a stock, or, to go out into the woods and hike, or, to do those kinds of things, and see wildlife. Uh, a lot of folks that don't have the opportunity to get out, or live in larger concrete villages, and don't have the kinds of experiences that we have in these kinds of environments, are really being deprived of all of the fun that there is, and all of the enjoyment that there is being around nature, and getting to see things like squirrels running around, and taking the time to actually feed wildlife, right? I mean, yeah, okay, you don't want to feed a whole lot of wildlife, it might turn on you, but right?
yeah,
That's another story we can get into too. I had one of those happen to me too. I was out in South Dakota feeding a deer, and it decided it wanted to do a little wham on me. Well, yeah, it kind of hit me and took me over for a loop. That was a little fun one, but just the experience alone of being able and being around wildlife. Like here, I feed deer in my backyard every winter. They migrate to my backyard in the winter months, so I feed them through the entire winter months. And I've got endless of videos where I sit out right hand in hand with the deer and hand feed the deer that are in my backyard. And how many people can do that, right? There's very few. So that shares in that, enjoyment. So, and brings a different kind of a perspective to how I look at archery too, when I'm sitting out. And is this something that, if again, it comes back for me, if I'm going to kill a deer, I'm going to eat it, right? I'm not going to take the life of a living thing, and just for the sake of taking that life. Just, there are a lot of people that like to do the hunting and shooting bows, and get out there and killing things, and they do it all for the big rack. And that's unfortunate, because there's that takes away from a lot of the fun and the enjoyment of actually being an archer, and going out there and having that whole experience. So, but yeah, I wouldn't give it up for the world.
yeah. It's I'm not as much of a rack hunter, because I want the meat. I don't care about the rack. Although if I have a nice buck come by, which I've shot some fairly decent ones, and uh, I know one time we was getting a little late getting in, and I was getting in my tree stand. I'm in, my bow's hanging up. I just got in, got strapped all in, and here comes this buck, and So I grabbed my bow and arrow, knocked it, and it come out with an opening, and I shot and run off. And I didn't even know how big the rack was until actually later when it was sitting in the back of my truck, I could see it, the rack sticking up on the side. It was like
Yeah.
I didn't even notice the rack. I just, oh, it's a buck. It's big enough to shoot. And then I just there went into focus on, making the shot and going there, and then we got it out and hauled it down. I didn't really pay much attention until I was at work. That's when I owned my archery store, and I'm sitting in the range, and here's my truck sitting out there, and it's like, now I can see that rack sticking up there. It's like, I'm like, okay, this is bigger than I thought. But
Yeah.
you know, oh,
And how many times have you fallen asleep in the deer in the stand and wake up to one sitting up underneath of you doing the little kick thing?
I had one time right about the rut, and back in Nebraska, that time you only had two tags. Is all you could get. You couldn't get any more than that. Now you can get a lot more than that, but you can only have two tags. So the first one, I always just, okay, I'm going to shoot a doe or whatever comes by first, because they were both either sacks.
Right.
So I'd shoot the doe, and I'd shot my doe, and it's like, okay, now it's early season. It's not December yet. It's right about the rut time, and I'm only going to shoot bucks there. I'm going to just wait, so I get a chance for a buck because I got meat in the freezer, so I don't need, do that. Now in December, then I'd change it, whatever come by. And so I got my grunt, and I'm grunting on it. I go, and I got just kind of messed it up a little bit because I heard what sounded like I thought was a duck hunter going, sometimes you get
Right.
bored duck hunting. You just start
Hmm.
making goofy sounds. And then I did that. And all of a sudden, this doe come running underneath my tree stand. I think hit my pole rope. I can see it through my stand, one doe. Another doe that was making all the noise was standing out there, about 20 yards away, just going,
Right.
I was
Right.
calling for a buck, and I was like,
Yep.
cool. you know, and
Wow.
then of course, I'm not going to shoot him because I'm right now I'm just in the buck only mode. I was like, well, this is a good attractant for a buck. And then I get out my buddy says, why didn't you shoot him? It's like, well, it wasn't a buck.
Right.
So at that
Exactly.
time I was
Yeah.
hunting for a buck because I only had two tags, and I didn't
Sure.
want to quit hunting, in November because I still got another month and a half to go. I didn't
Yeah.
want to quit
Absolutely.
hunting because
Yeah.
once you shoot the second tag, you're done. And now they have antlerless tags. You can get lots of those. So I don't want to have my store. There's guys that shoot 20 deer legally on tags because
Yeah.
there was unlimited because there's so big of a population. Now they're only antlerless deer. You know,
Sure.
they don't say doe only because if a buck's dropped its antlers,
Right.
you can't tell.
Right.
So yeah, it was interesting, and I know you get out there sometimes, and at the fiber optic pins, they start glowing about time hunting season. I don't normally turn the light on my pins because when you turn the light on, it's kind of that little dusky part, still legal shooting time.
Hmm.
All you see is pins, you can't see past them.
Right.
So the fiber optic pins, they start glowing when it's time to hunt, and they stop glowing when it's basically time to stop hunting because you lose in the forest, you lose the light. Well, I was out there in the wintertime, snow on the ground, full moon, no leaves, and I'm out there. It's like I can see just fine. It's like, I'm kind of using the clue of, the pins stop glowing. Well, they didn't stop glowing. I was like, what time is it? And I was past hunting time, and nothing come by, but I was like, get out there, and I walked out without a flashlight. It was just so bright,
Yeah.
full
Depending
moon, no
upon what time.
clouds,
Yeah.
no leaves on the trees, and there was snow on the ground and a full moon. So you had light, and it was interesting, the different things you run into, and you just that's one of the things like, okay, this has got to be best time because you don't notice how dark it's getting when it's so bright underneath the trees.
Right. Yeah. And until you have to look down that sight post.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay. Wait a
Right.
minute, where's it
Right.
at?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've also had the other, earlier season when you still have the canopy on in there, and now your pin's not glowing anymore, and you still got an hour of shooting time left because maybe it's cloudy and you don't see anything, and that's when you need to turn the lights on in your pins. And
Yeah, depending upon what if you're shooting early season or late season too, right? If you're
yeah,
shooting late season, obviously you're gonna you'll be lucky if you get to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, before you're already too late in the day. So
yeah,
because the sun's already poked down up here in the UP, late season we're lucky to get 4:30. If you don't have something by 4:30, you're not getting it pretty much
right.
because 5:30 it's already dark, and I mean pitch dark. So
Yeah. Well, not quite so much down here, but we in wintertime it does get dark pretty early, and we just need to, you keep track of that, and nice amount on your phones that can do the vibrate mode, and it's like, okay, here's time to stop hunting, let it vibrate. You know what's going on? Okay, I can't shoot no more.
yeah,
But
yeah.
generally, don't have to worry about it unless that one time when it's snow cover, full moon, no leaves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For late season for us, I mean, generally, I mean, we go till the 1st of January for late season, and the we've got by the time January hits, we're usually where I'm living at particularly, we've got probably a good 160, 180 inches of snow already by then.
Yeah,
Right. So
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So then it becomes really challenging. So you really start questioning, how much do I really want to shoot this bow today? Oh, right? Right? And do I really want to go out there and sit and freeze my tuchus off that? Well, obviously there's plenty of other things that, ways to get around that. There's all with technology and the gear that we have today available to us,
oh yeah,
it's just, yeah, I can go out there now with the gear that I've got and I can sit with some, 20 degrees below zero and sit for hours on end and just in comfort. So there's a lot of other ways to handle that and what have you. So, but thinking about that and along how, the shooting the bow, there's a lot of the things that I noticed that my brother also shot at me was the fact that how you have to look at, whether or not you're sitting, the different variations of sitting, shooting the bow from standing to, are you sitting down? Are you sitting up in a tree at, 30 feet in the air or whatever? And the angle that you have to cant your bow and the degrees of your cant and all of that kind of stuff like that. And then just the temperatures alone of the deviations between, early season and late season and the temperatures and how they affect your bow. Right? There are so many different
right.
kinds of things that you have to learn about that. And to this day, I don't remember half of that stuff, and that's why I have my brother. My brother is just, I love him to death. He takes care of that kind of stuff for me, right? The guys like you and my brother are the guys that I look to and I aspire to, right? Because you guys are the guys that are really, you're knocking it, right? You're crushing it with these things. And because it's your wholehearted passion, right? And I enjoy shooting. My passion is being outdoors and enjoying the bow. Your passion is shooting the bow and being outdoors. Right? So it's kind of along the same lines, right?
Right.
But where I get my benefit and I have my enjoyment is my learning experience from guys like you and guys like my brother, right? That really have this passion to do this kind of stuff. So I'm grateful for you guys because you guys are the ones that keep me on when because sometimes I don't always want to have to think about it. I want to be able to go to guys like you and say, hey, look, Roy, can you help me out? All right. I need to get this. I need to figure out how to rewire or restring this bow. I need to figure out how to build a string. And how do you do that? What encompasses all of that kind of stuff, right? And that's guys like you are the ones that help me with that kind of stuff. Because right, I've learned that rather than focusing and trying to get better on my weaknesses, I focus on the things that I'm good at, and I worry about that, and I let others help me with all of those things that I'm weak at, right? So that's how I kind of look at
Y- Yeah, you get a lot of people that I know. I've got people that used to come into me all the time, and nobody would touch their bow except me because they knew what I was doing, and they didn't want to work on themselves because they wanted to eliminate that possibility. Did I do this right? Did I mess this up? This way. So now they turn over somebody that they know can do it. So I know it's not the bow, it's me. If something's getting messed up, it's not the bow, it's me, because the bow is set up perfectly because this person that you trust, your bow tech, has set them up perfectly, and then it deals down to you, and you get a lot of a lot of people don't understand how things all fit together. And when you set up a bow correctly, there's no reason to shoot through paper.
Right.
Paper's only going to tell you if you have an underspined arrow because of tear one way, tear next way, or your form is wrong.
Yep.
You can get a bad tear shooting that bow, and I can shoot the bow and get a perfect tear. What's the difference? The bow didn't change, your
Absolutely.
technique.
Yep.
And that's the part that we need to look into is the overall picture, and that's where like myself and your brother, we get into that. We look at people that here is your problems. Like when I teach somebody archery, I have a series of stuff that I learned when I become an archery instructor in the 90s, and then with me being in martial arts for over 20 years, you learn motion and how to transfer the most power to your target. And I've kind of merged those together, so what I'm teaching is slightly different because it's more mechanics of the body, because you learn that in martial arts, the mechanics of the body, how to work with different stuff, so I put the most amount of power in the right direction. And all that comes into the grip and the release and everything else all comes into that. And that's some of the things that we can teach in archery coaching program, which I have. I'll leave a link in the description how you can get a free 15-minute consultation to see if the coaching might be for you. So I'll leave that in the description. But back where we're looking, it's like, what do we have to do to get better? And where's your strengths? In an archer's case, maybe their strength might be in shooting the bow. Maybe it's working on a bow. Find, like you said, find your strength and work on that. And enjoy being outdoors. And I know you have an outdoor theme in your group. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your group and what you're doing with that?
Yeah, so my on my socials, I really it's about learning how to learning how to enjoy the outdoors more, and not just not just the concept. Like we see my background here. This is Quamanon Falls in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and it's literally my backyard. Right, I get to go. I live 62 miles away from this where I grew up at. I was only 30-minute drive from this place, and I've traveled all over the Upper Peninsula, 57 waterfalls in the UP, and I enjoy going to see all of them. So kind of what I want to help people in the world understand is that there's a lot of beauty and a lot of just inspiration of being outdoors and in all sorts of capacities, whether that be out doing archery and shooting and hunting and doing that kind of stuff like that, or if you're getting into photography and you just like to go out and take pictures of all of the wonderful things outdoors. Whether or not that's waterfalls, for me, I love water and I love the waterfalls. A lot of people are about like enjoying wildlife, right? Just going out and taking pictures of of the porcupines and the squirrels and the deer and the bear and the whatever, right? Or the elk or whatever. But it's about wildlife for a lot of folks and what have you. But there's also people that enjoy being in the outdoors by traveling to go and see things and go to sites and do those kinds of things like that. So I want people to engage and go kind of get into that arena and show them, there's a way that you can do that, and there's all kinds of ways that you can do that. Excuse me. And that's what my group's about. It's about getting together and getting passionate people that are enjoying all of those different facets of being outdoors in one area, and sharing those things with each other, and experience those experiences that they've had, and kind of giving each other ideas and thoughts and transitions to, if you're a guy that likes like you and I, like we like archery, right? And we can share that experience with the others in our group that are maybe interested in archery, but have never, they've never had the opportunity to experience it, and they might be looking for that right kind of a person to kind of get them started, in that direction, right? Or somebody that's a photographer that really wants to go out and learn about photography and get into that and enjoy nature with that and what have you. They want to be able to do that. Or traveling, where are the places that I can go and travel and go see things and enjoy those kinds of things, and maybe take pictures, and maybe, do some hunting or those kinds of things like that. That's what my group is all about, getting all of those people together and kind of sharing those ideas and letting, each other kind of build on that experience.
And what's the name of your group?
Freedom's Lair. and it's on Facebook. The and a lot of people have asked me already, what does Freedom's Lair mean? So and my name is Jon Roberts and Freedom's Lair. Where did you come up with that? So I really kind of I'm a fantasy fiction kind of guy. I love dragons and elves and those kinds of things like that, what have you, and particularly dragons. I'm really kind of fond, of the dragon, for whatever reason. And when I think about a dragon, I think about how dragons act and how they portray things and what have you. And generally speaking, every dragon has a lair, what they call their lair, right? That's where they gather all of their gold and their treasures and all of their belongings and what have you, and they drag all of that stuff back into their lair, and that's where they overlook it and protect it and take care of it and oversee it. And for me, that's kind of what this is about. This is about building this group that's in a safe and protected place where they can come and share all of their treasures and their thoughts and their ideas with each other and what have you, bring all of that into a collective place. And part of that is having the freedom to be able to do all of that. So freedoms for me means freedom means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So for me personally, I look at freedom, and my freedoms, my liberties are the things that I treasure that are tangible items like time. Time is the biggest thing that we have in our life that we have very little of, right? So I value my time quite a bit. And I like to have control over my time. That's a freedom that I want to have, is time freedom, and other things like location freedom and money freedom and financial freedom and those kinds of things like that. There's a lot of freedoms, right? But all of those things kind of tie together. And in order to be able to enjoy nature, or you have to have some of these freedoms, right? And once we have those freedoms and we bring them together into our lair, we share those ideas and those concepts of how we attained those freedoms and how we got to those freedoms so that we could actually go outside and enjoy nature a lot more than we are today. So that's what the group's about.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'll leave a link to the group in the description. So if you want to get out there, you can just go to the link. Otherwise, just go out to Freedom's Lair, search it on Facebook, and join his group, because it's going to be a real good resource for those that want to spend time outside.
Absolutely.
So I think we've had a really good conversation here. It's been real informative. I think our listeners are going to enjoy some of the information we had out there and relate to some of the stuff we've saying. And I know you can always leave a comment. What are your experiences in the outside, whether it's being a nature experience or hunting experience? Share it, because this is kind of what we're all for, is sharing this nature and sharing everything we can. So once again, I have an archery coaching program that you can get into. I'm offering a free 15-minute consultation call to anybody that fills out the form. You can always connect with me on Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, as well as this podcast. And then there's also archerytalk101.com. There's a lot of resources out there as well. So once again, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101 with my guest, Jon Roberts.
Thank you, Roy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Glad to have you.